guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Erin if you're new here. Today is Saturday, September 11th, which means I am 3 weeks out from my first show. And for this week's video, I'm going to be doing a Q&A. I had you guys ask me some questions on Instagram, and I got a couple of questions here on YouTube that I'm going to be answering as well. And if you stick to the end of the video, I'm going to be doing a suit reveal. So I've been keeping the color of my suit a secret. Today I'm going to be showing you guys my suit for the first time ever. You guys are going to be the first ones to see it before Instagram, TikTok, anything like that. And I'm also going to be showing you guys my whole look for the show day and what I have planned. So stick to the end of the video if you want to see that. But before I show you guys what I'm going to be wearing for the show, let's get into the questions. I screenshotted all of the questions on my phone. So somebody asked, what inspired you to start your bodybuilding journey? So I kind of talked about this question in one of my older YouTube videos. I think it's just called My Fitness Journey. So that video kind of explains how I've gotten into fitness and why I started working out. So if you haven't watched that video and you want to know why I started working out, how I got really into lifting, just my whole journey, go watch that video because that answers that. As far as competing and why I wanted to get into that, I had just felt like I was at a standstill with my fitness. Like, I loved working out still, I had motivation to go to the gym, but I felt like I didn't have a goal. I wanted something to really work towards and something to push myself for. And I really just wanted to see what level I could take my fitness to. And then from there, I sort of fell in love with this sport. And one of the reasons I really have loved this journey so far is because in the past 8 or 9 months that I've been prepping for this, I've made the most progress I ever have in the gym, mentally, physically, just all across the board, the most progress ever. And so I always tell people, if you feel like you are at a plateau or at a standstill in your fitness, try and come up with some sort of goal. Because if you're working towards something, a lot of the time you're going to make more progress. And for me, that goal was this date of the show. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be competing is your goal, but having something to work towards just gives a whole new level to your fitness. It kind of forces you to get out of just your everyday routine, like, okay, I'm just going to the gym for an hour because it's good for me type of situation. So that's kind of what I was searching for out of doing my first competition, and I definitely have gotten that new sort of sense of drive and discipline from it. Somebody says, could I do this? And that is a very broad question, but I did kind of want to answer what I think this person's trying to say. Anybody can compete. Anybody can work towards being a competitor and getting on stage. Everybody's journey is going to be different though. So if you come from a place where you have a lot of recomping to do, kind of like I did over 2 years of recomping and making sure my metabolism was healthy before I compete, you're going to have that little bump to get over. Or if you're coming from the opposite end of where I was coming from, maybe you have a lot of weight to lose before you're going to be able to step on stage. That's another obstacle that you'll have to overcome. So anybody can compete, it's just what is in your way of getting to that goal. I also wanted to touch on, there are some things that I think people should consider before they compete. I think a lot of people just jump into it thinking that it's going to be fun and glitzy and glam, which it is, but there's also a lot that goes behind it that not everybody knows about. So some of the things that I think people should be aware of before they decide to compete are making sure that you're mentally ready. Me, I had been considering doing a competition for a while, but I knew that my mental health wasn't ready yet because of my past with eating. So I took like a year, 2 years to recomp, make sure I was eating enough food and putting on the muscle. That way that when I started cutting, my calories weren't so low that I was miserable and hated prep the entire time. So I do know people who have jumped into a prep too quickly, and because they didn't recomp well enough, their calories were just dangerously low. Other thing I think that is really important before you decide to do a prep is research a coach. I know people who have had really bad experiences because they've had a really bad coach. I'll hear some of the things that people will have their coaches making them do, and it's super unhealthy. And because of that, I think sometimes bodybuilding gets a really bad reputation, and I feel really bad for those people who had those really awful coaches and hate the sport as a whole because of it, and feel like they'd never be able to compete again and just hate bodybuilding. Making sure that you have a coach that has your best interest in heart as a person and a competitor is really important. I talked about how I had talked to a coach before I hired my current coach, and that video I made called My Fitness Journey. Something just felt off, so I encourage you to look for that when you're getting a coach. Listen to your gut. I was trying to be in a bulk, and this man had me eating like just under 1,200 calories, and I was only allowed to eat this carb or this specific meat. There was no sort of variety or asking questions about what might be right for my body specifically. It was very cookie cutter, okay, here's your program, this is what I give all the girls, so this is what you're gonna do type of thing. The other thing that I think is really important to consider before you compete is how much money do you have to spend on competing. Although I wish this wasn't a factor, unfortunately it is. Just to go over the expenses a little bit of what goes into bodybuilding, there is the suit you have to pay for, which is hundreds of dollars. There's your hair and makeup, which is hundreds of dollars. Coaching most of the time is a couple hundred a month on the cheaper side of things. And then just to enter is like $100-something usually for each division, each category. And that's not including like food and supplements and everything that I pay for just to keep me healthy. So before you decide to compete, maybe think, is this something that I'm able to spend hundreds of dollars a month on? Because at the end of the day, I think I do spend close to hundreds of dollars a month on this sport. So you are in a financial pinch, maybe right now would not be the time to compete. So after considering all of those factors, if you think bodybuilding would still be the sport for you, go for it. Try and find a coach that's going to be a good fit. Try it out. Do a competition. If you don't like it, you never have to do it again. That would be my advice. I got a couple of questions asking how tall I am. I'm 5'3". Depending on how tall you are, it decides which class you will compete in. Yeah, I'm 5'3". Most of the time I'll be competing in A or B class. I think there's one time I'm going to be competing in C, but it also depends on when I check in what class they put me in and how they measure me. So a lot of people will comment on my TikTok or Instagram and say I look tall. I have no idea why. I'm 5'3". I'm nowhere close to tall. I'm a pretty short person. What muscle group on your body are you the most proud of? I'm going to answer this in two different ways. I would say the most proud of, I feel like the most impressive progress I made has been on my legs. I've been really working on that over this course of this prep. Glutes have always been something I've been able to grow pretty easily just because of my genetics, but my quads have a really hard time growing, and I also have pretty bad knee problems, popping pain, stuff like that. So I'm really proud of how I've been able to grow my quads this prep. So I'll put a little picture of when I started prep versus what they look like now. I still feel like my legs have a long way to come, but I'm most proud of that because that's something I put a lot of work into. My second answer to this question is going to be kind of which part of myself that I like the best. So I would say my shoulders and my back are definitely what I feel looks the best on my physique and are my strong points. Just my upper body in general is I feel like I look good, I'm happy about that. So yeah.
There's a monster.
Okay, so somebody says, why don't you train with volume instead of going for weight over volume? That question doesn't really make sense, but I am going to talk about my training style a little bit and how it's changed during this prep. While I was in a bulk, I was lifting really heavy for 6 to 8 reps and just trying to put on as much size as possible. Then I was also doing minimal cardio. As I've gotten closer to the show, I still lift as heavy as I possibly can, but for more closer to 8 to 10 reps. And I'm also doing closer to 45 minutes to an hour of cardio, as before I was doing close to none. So that's kind of how my training has changed over this prep. I've also taken out compound lifts, a bench and a deadlift as I've gotten closer. That's only been in the weeks closer to prep. I kept those in for a really long time because I think they are helpful for muscle growth. Like heavy squats and heavy deadlifts have helped my legs a lot, but it just hasn't been optimal during prep. One of the questions I get a lot too, this wasn't specifically asked on my Instagram this time, but I get this question almost every time I post a question poll, is what is my training split? So I'm gonna go over what that looks like right now. I do have a week of workouts video that goes over it pretty well, but it has changed a little bit, I think, since I posted that video. I track all my workouts on Google Sheets. If you guys ever want to see how I do that, I could go over that in a video as well. But it kind of just looks, I don't know if you can even see that. Looks something like this is where I like write all my workouts, and then I track my weights on the other side. So that's kind of how I do that, and I'll just pick an amount of weeks that I'm running a program for and track it in my phone while I'm working out. Right now I'm doing back on Mondays, shoulders and biceps on Tuesdays, legs on Wednesdays, chest and triceps on Thursdays, back and shoulders on Fridays, legs on Saturdays, rest on Sundays. But I've just found that this is what's been working best for me right now, and when I am in the off season, I will probably change my split, make it a little less each day has a body part type of situation, but this is what's working for me right now. Training like this is healthy. Okay, this is a really good question, kind of controversial one as well, but I'm excited to dive into this. I think that prep can be done in a healthy way, and I think that it should be taken really seriously, and you should be very careful. So again, like I said, if you find a coach that you just feel like this isn't right, I feel like I'm not healthy, this person has me doing things I'm not comfortable with, they're not listening to me and my body, and we're just not getting along well, you feel like they're not listening to you, get a new coach, because it doesn't have to be like that. Bodybuilding does not need to be that way, and I know lots of people have awful experiences because of a bad coach and fall into really bad habits because of prep and because of the things their coach was having them do that was not necessarily necessary or healthy. Having a good healthy prep is also having a good coach. The second thing is maintaining the body fat that you have for those last few weeks of prep is not healthy. It shouldn't be maintained. It's not something that you're going to constantly look like. It's not a look that you should be aiming to maintain year round. So if you're trying to stay prep lean year round, I'm sorry, it's not healthy. Prep is not something you should maintain. Your body can only maintain this for so long before you start losing muscle mass. You're gonna start noticing bad side effects. Maintaining that lean of a physique should not be something that you're aiming for year round. And if you are, probably no, it's not healthy. Doing an hour of cardio and weighing everything out every single day is also not healthy for your general lifestyle person, and not something that you necessarily should be doing every single day. During the off season, I don't plan on doing an hour of cardio every day, and I also don't plan on weighing out every single thing. I'll probably track and weigh out most things still, just to make sure that I am sticking to my reverse diet and making sure that I am not overdoing it and binging and going crazy after prep. But it's not something I would recommend to a lifestyle client. It's kind of like a do as I say, not as I do right now type of situation, because if you're not a bodybuilder and you're not going through prep, what I'm doing is just not going to be ideal for you. I also think it's really important to have a plan for your off season. I know a lot of people who will struggle with binging after the show. I'm going to be working really close with my coach and making sure that we have a plan that I'm sticking to as far as a reverse diet, and I'm going to be quenching my cravings and enjoying food, but also not overdoing it to the point where I feel sick every single day. I just think making sure that you have that support and somebody to talk to after your show is really important as well. This is the first time I'll be going through that, so after the show is over, I'll talk about my reversing plan and kind of what that's going to look like, and I'll be open and honest about my struggles with it as well. I mean, gaining weight is not easy, but I am excited to do it. It's going to mean putting on size and putting on muscle, so the next time I decide to compete, I can beat the physique that I show this year. So I'm excited to put on weight and grow during the off season. It is a little bit scary to think about what random people at work or at the gym might think when they see me and I've gained weight. But I know for me, I want to gain weight because I want to be able to put on the muscle mass. So I think having that in my head will help me to not be so worried about what other people think about me gaining weight. Because at the end of the day, like I said, being stage lean is not maintainable. What is your favorite meal during a cut? Ooh, that's a good one. There's several. Some of my favorite foods this prep have been cereal, protein cereal. Premier Protein makes a really good cereal with really good macros. Protein yogurt, mixing protein powder with Greek yogurt, putting it in the freezer. That's been one of my favorite snacks. Rice cakes with like peanut butter. For some reason, I've been craving peanut butter a lot during this prep. I'm loving like a rice cake and peanut butter. It's just so good. It's different for some reason. I would say those are my top 3 right now. Food I'm looking forward to in the off season is like mainly sweets I've been craving, like cheesecake.
My grandma makes these like cherry cheesecake bites. I can't stop thinking about them. I want one so bad. Or just like crumble cookies. That sounds so good. And then also, I've been craving like pasta and a burger as far as savory foods go. So.
Someone says, have you learned anything about yourself? How has this prep changed your mindset? I've learned tons about myself. I've never really been through a real cut. So physically, I've learned about, okay, these are the parts of my body that take a little bit longer and need a little bit of extra work when I'm going through prep. I've also learned just how disciplined I am. And maybe that sounds like not very humble, but it's like when I first started this, it's like, okay, am I going to be disciplined enough? Am I going to be able to stick to this plan? And it's like, I've done it so far. Like, I'm here, I'm doing it. The fact that I've even made it this far, I've learned so much about my capabilities and what my body is actually capable of. And like, I never thought that I'd actually be able to come this far and make this much progress. When I first started like thinking about competing, it's like, am I even going to be ready to compete? Am I even going to be like competition to anybody? And my camera ran out of storage. I had to replace the memory card. Just the fact that I've been able to build a physique that I feel comfortable bringing to stage. I still have days where I'm like, oh shoot, I don't look ready at all. At the end of the day, like, I've built something that I'm proud of bringing to stage. So the amount of progress that I've made from day 1 to now, I'm very proud of, and I just never thought that I would have made this much progress. I've also learned about my personality, how my tendencies and how I get when I'm, a little low on food, and how I tend to act, and emotionally what's hard for me during prep I've learned about as well. I do get more irritated during this, and I also have learned about the boundaries I need to set. I haven't been able to give people as much emotional energy, and if I do, sometimes I tend to get irritated. So learning that if I put myself in a certain situation, am I going to be a person I don't like? So knowing what situations to stay away from during prep and what situations are okay to put myself in, and trying to do that without isolating myself either, and still giving attention to my friends and family. So that's something that I've learned as well. What has been the hardest thing about prep? So I don't think that the weight training has been super hard for me. The things that have been hard is the food and the cardio. I've gotten a lot better about cardio. I've always gotten it done, but like an hour on the stairs is not nearly as miserable as it used to be. But when I first started, that was really hard. More recently, the food has been the harder part, and just being like, okay, when I'm hungry and I've eaten all my calories, I just have to go to bed and suck it up. So that's been one of the harder things. I just always think about my end goal, how I'm going to be able to enjoy all of this food after prep. And it's been nothing like so hard where I haven't been able to push through. My calories, because I recomped so well, are still relatively high for somebody who's in prep. So I just think about that and how I'm grateful that my calories aren't super low. Like some of the people I've heard have to get their calories super low to come in conditioned on stage, and I'm just grateful that I'm still relatively high. This was the question I was really excited to answer. Somebody says, do you find your stage lean body or off-season body more attractive for personal life? Do you like looking curvy and strong with more meat on your boobs/booty? Or do you like the stage lean with tinier boobs, less booty meat all around? What do your friends, family, and boyfriend think? So I prefer the way my body looks during the off season, and I think that that's a healthy mindset to have as well. The reason why I like my body more during off season is because that's when I put on all my muscle, and that's when I'm building. And when you see those shredded physiques on stage, they built that during the off season. You most of the time don't put any muscle on during your cut or during prep. You just try to maintain that muscle, and sometimes you lose a little bit because you're not eating as much, which is okay. So being shredded is cool and it looks really awesome, but you're not really putting on any muscle. And so for me, the way I think about like a cut and looking shredded is like, yeah, I look this way because I built all of that during the off season. I didn't build this right now. So it's just a way to show off what you built when you were more curvy looking. So for me, I prefer when, you know, I have a little bit more meat on me. The second part of that question is, what do your family, friends, boyfriend think about it? So my boyfriend competes as well. He's doing the same show October 1st. So I would say out of anybody in my life, he understands this and me the most. He's very supportive of what I need, and I'm really lucky because not a lot of people have somebody that they're going through prep with at the same time, let alone a significant other, and have it be both of our first show. So he's been incredibly supportive, and that's been extremely helpful to have somebody to relate to on that level. Friends and family, I think I talked about this in my last vlog. They're not gonna always understand, and I just try to keep it in my head like, I chose this. I can't expect everybody in my life to cater to me and to expect them to understand, especially when they're just not knowledgeable about it. So if I ever run into somebody who I feel like isn't being supportive or maybe doesn't have the best intention or doesn't like what I'm doing, I just try to educate them. If you are uneducated, it's easy to be judging and not supportive. So for me, I try to be understanding and take it as an opportunity to educate them a little bit and give them a little bit of information about the sport, some of the misconceptions that they might have or some of the things that they might think that aren't actually true. Do you get diet/skinny face? Do you think you look like a hungry girl as you get closer and closer to your show? So I would say some of the changes I've seen in my body are definitely in my face. Like a lot of people, even if I'm like wearing a hoodie or like leggings, they can be like, oh, I could tell like you've gotten leaner because of your face. And just because of who I am as a person, my face leans out probably the quickest out of anything. I also lose my boobs and I've lost my butt a little bit. So, you know, that's where we hold our body fat as females. So definitely I've lost some weight in my face and my boobs. But I don't really mind. I know it's going to come back during the off season, so it's fine. Does getting leaner affect your ability to lift weights? Do you feel fragile and breakable when you lift weights when you get really lean? It's harder to lift as heavy as you were before when you don't weigh as much. That's just science, you know? So as I've leaned out, some of the weights I used to lift before don't move, and that's okay. And I'm going to be able to lift even more than I was lifting during this off season, and I'm just excited to get that strength back. And, you know, just trying to be like patient with yourself. It's losing weight and keeping the same amount of strength is close to impossible. So I just try to be gentle with myself. It's not always easy. You know, you don't weigh as much, so you can't really expect yourself to lift just as heavy. You can try to maintain that strength as much as possible, and that's what I try to do every time I go to the gym. But if you lose some strength, that's just part of the cut. So it is what it is. On a scale from 1 to 10, how hungry do you get during prep? Is the hunger more intense than normal hunger? I guess this question kind of depends on where you're at during prep and then also what your personal calories are at. But for me, I would say I didn't really have that like hunger feeling. Like I was pretty okay with how many calories I was eating until about 4 or 5 weeks out, and then I started noticing the hunger at night. And I wouldn't say it's anything unbearable or that I can't like push through and be disciplined about. I want to give it a 6 or a 7 because it's like higher than average, which I would put 5 at. So 6 or 7. Nothing crazy. I wouldn't say I'm like 10, like ravenous, like, oh my god, I'm gonna eat anything I see in front of me. But maybe I'll get there. I don't know. I hope not. But right now I would say 6 or 7. Okay, so that is all the questions you guys asked. I have to leave for work soon, so I want to get this show day look reveal done really quick. Here's my suit. one of my suits. So I actually had to buy 2 suits since I'm crossing over into wellness and bikini. You can't wear the same one. I believe you can wear the same top but not the same bottoms, but I just decided to get 2 suits. So wellness is the suit that I invested the most money in. I ordered this suit custom from Toxic Angels. So it came with this robe, and the robe has my team's name on it, so I'll be wearing that backstage. And then for the exciting part, so the color I decided to go with is red. Okay, so this is my suit. We decided to go with the wider connectors, look like that. This is the stone we decided for the middle, and then I decided to go with just this string in the back. Some people get these connectors in the back too, but my hair is going to be covering that up anyways, so I decided to save a little money there. I did get the like pillow stuffing and the padding inside just because I am not very gifted in the chest area. Here is what the bottoms look like. So for those of you who don't know, the difference between a wellness and a bikini suit is wellness has this front V scoop right here, whereas bikini doesn't. And then that is what it looks like in the back. I believe these are micro pro cut. I'm actually not sure. But that is what the suit looks like. My suit that I'm crossing over with, this one I didn't order from Toxic Angels. I actually got this one on eBay for a little cheaper. Still red, just a little bit of a smaller top, not as many beads on the top, smaller connectors, not as much padding either. A little bit of a different middle piece, but they look relatively similar. So then for bikini, like I was talking about, these bottoms are a little bit smaller, and they also don't have that V cut. They just go straight across on the bottom. For my shoes and jewelry, I got all of my stuff on Amazon. So I have a couple of bracelets. I got a wider one and then one smaller one. So I'm just gonna wear whichever bracelet my coach tells me to. I got kind of a bigger ring and then really long, big earrings. So that's gonna be the jewelry. The shoes I ordered on, what is this place called? Babe? What's the shoe company called?
This one?
Yeah. I forgot what they're called. The Shoe Fairy, that's what it's called. So I got my shoes from the Shoe Fairy. I forget what style. I'll put it in editing if I can figure it out. This is what they look like. They're tiny. Like, that's my hand. I have pretty small feet. Anyways, they're sparkly. I don't know if the camera is going to pick that up. But yeah, I got the ankle strap. You can get lots of kind of shoes. I wanted some sparkle, but I didn't want to overdo it. So that's why I went with these shoes. And I think I'm going to wear my hair curly. I want a red lip. But other than that, I hired professional makeup, so whatever the makeup artist wants to do, I'm not huge into makeup, so whatever they think is gonna look good with a red lip is what I'm gonna let them do. I actually have to run to work. I'm gonna be late, so I'm just gonna put in a few pictures of what I look like in my suit. Next week, stay tuned. I have a really exciting video I did with my coach going over some posing and what judges look for and why we're doing specific poses. So I'm really excited to edit and post that. If you want to keep up with my prep journey, I'm only 3 weeks out, so I'm going to be posting all the way up to show day and after. So if you want to keep up with me, make sure to subscribe. I post new videos every single Sunday. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok at Erin.fitness or at Erin_fitness. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye.